We're going to check out Mel Kiper's first 2024 NFL mock draft. But first, I just want to say thank you to all of you that liked our previous video. We got 671 likes, which means I get studio space for the rest of the week. And now we're trying to get to our next baby milestone in subscribers, 20,200. 40 subs to go. So if you have not joined the channel yet, go ahead and do so. Mel Kiper dropped his first mock draft of the year, so naturally we're going to react to his Denver Broncos selection, take a look at the entire mock draft as well, but all in all, let's talk about what the Broncos could do with pick number 12. But first, let's get things started with the first overall pick, which is Caleb Williams going to the Chicago Bears, followed by Jaden Daniels jumping Drake May for number 2 overall. I feel like that's kind of a hot take that's not going to age too well. Drake May falls to the Pats at number 3. Marvin Harrison will be the next Larry Fitzgerald in the desert. Brock Bowers goes number 5. We've got Malik Neighbors going 6. Joe Alt is a Tennessee Titan. The Alabama Falcons go with Dallas Turner out of Alabama. Roma Dunze goes to Chicago at number 9. Olu Fashanu is off to be Aaron Rodgers' new left tackle. Nate Wiggins, the corner from Clemson, is a Minnesota Viking. And finally, with the 12th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select Laiatu Latu, edge rusher out of UCLA. So let's get to know and get familiar with Laiatu Latu, the one-time Washington Husky, and then transferred down to UCLA, where he was a dynamite, explosive, prolific the last 2 seasons for the Bruins. 6'5", 265 pounds, but he plays a little bit thinner than that. You might think 6'5", 265 pounds, that's a massive human being, and you're not wrong, but when you watch the tape, he plays a little bit on the thinner side than that, meaning he plays with much more speed in his game than strength. Now, he missed 2 seasons, 2020 and 2021, after Washington told him, your football career is over after a neck injury he sustained during practice in the fall. However, he would eventually transfer to UCLA, and, well, he got the last laugh. Now, he turned 23 years old in December, so I feel like this is truly the last draft where you've got some older guys coming out because of all the COVID years and 5th years and 6th years, and one guy's even got a 9th year, so I'm okay with a 23-year-old. I understand that in the draft, younger just sounds better, but I think having a more mature player come in also comes in with some pros as well. Now, here's what Mel Kiper had to say on Latu. He's a toolsy pass rusher who has a variety of moves and always has a plan of attack. He ranked 2nd in the FBS in total pressures with 57 and pressure rate with 20.4% this past season. And he ranked 1st in the same categories in 2022, 55 pressures, 19.1% pressure rate. And did I mention he had 23.5 sacks in that time frame? Those are 2 seasons of phenomenal production. The question with Latu will come at the NFL Combine in a few weeks, as he medically retired from football because of a neck injury when he was at Washington in 2021. He was cleared to play for the Bruins, but what will his medical checkup show? Now, like Kiper said, Latu production-wise was awesome for the Bruins this past season. 13 sacks, 21.5 tackles for loss. But like I said earlier, he's not just a strength guy. Like, he relies much more on his speed, I would say. You can drop him in coverage, and I think that makes him a perfect fit for a 3-4 defensive front, to have him be that outside linebacker as opposed to being a 5 technique, put your hand in the dirt, rush off the edge, kind of like Zach Allen. I think he's undersized for that, but I think he could fit in that Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning, Nick Bonito rotation very nicely. Now, like I said, he needs help in terms of building up his strength a little bit, which I know sounds ridiculous to say for guys going in the first round, but he also needs to work on his run-stopping abilities. It's easy to beat it's easy-ish to beat some of the tackles in the Pac-12, right? I don't think Colorado had a very fearful offensive line this year. But when you get to the NFL, you can't rely on just being faster than some of the tackles and guards you went against up in college. You also have to show your worth on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down early on in your career, which comes down to stopping the run. And that's an element of Latu's game that I want to see more of when he makes the jump over to the pros. But if we're evaluating this pick, if the Broncos are on the clock and all their dream quarterbacks are gone, if they want to go best player available and he's number one on their board, I can get behind that. So let me toss this your way. What position should the Broncos draft first? Quarterback, cornerback, or edge? I would say those have been the three most heavily mocked position groups to the Broncos. And if the top three quarterbacks are gone, and you think Latu's a better player than any of the corners, in this draft, and I don't think this is a great cornerback draft class. Like, not one mock draft has a guy going top 10 from what I've seen. So if you think Latu can be a difference maker down the stretch, and you're thinking more than just 2024, but beyond that, hey, you don't get top 12 picks hopefully very often. You make the most of it. And if Latu's that guy, I think you should go ahead and do it. But now let me know what you think. Who is the biggest, or what is the biggest need for the Broncos? Quarterback, corner, or edge? Now, before we get on to the rest of our mock draft reaction in terms of looking at the remainder of Mel Kiper's mock, I do want to tell you guys about our sponsor today, which is Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And right now, all users get $100 off when they buy a big game ticket for a big game going down in Las Vegas a few Sundays now between maybe the 49ers and the Ravens, the Lions and the Chiefs. Who knows after this weekend? But you can save $100 if you plan on going to the big game when you download Game Time and redeem code Vegas100. Now, that's not going to make the ticket absolutely free, but we all know that Vegas is not the cheapest city in America, so anytime you can save $100 when you go to Las Vegas, you should not think twice about it. Now, if you are not planning on going to see the big game, no problem at all. You can just download the Game Time app and use promo code Broncos Chat for $20 off some Nuggets tickets, some Avs tickets, or any other NFL playoff game this upcoming weekend if you plan on making a big trip out to Santa Clara or to Baltimore. So download Game Time today. I put all of that link in the comments and description of today's video. Just download the app and use code Vegas100 for $100 off a big game ticket. Or if you're not going to the game, just use code Broncos Chat for $20 off your purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, looking at the Broncos edge rush unit as a whole, they return all of their main guys: Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning, Nick Bonitto. All four of those players are still on their rookie contracts. Zach Allen was kind of your splash pass rushing free agent signing last offseason. Now, he's not really in the same group as the first three, since he plays more of a defensive end role as opposed to an outside linebacker position. But I think there is something to be said about wanting more out of this unit, right? Cooper led the way with 8.5 sacks. Baron Browning missed the first third of the season. He finished with 4.5 sacks. Nick Bonitto had a really big breakout sophomore season, but he kind of cooled off, wouldn't you agree, the last half of the season or so, finishing the year with 8 sacks still. Now, Mel Kiper did add this in his reasoning for picking Latu for Denver. The Broncos tied for 21st with 42 sacks, but overall they ranked 30th in yards per play allowed and 32nd in yards per carry allowed. Latu has the potential to be a 10 sacks per season defender. So I can get behind looking at Denver's front five right now and thinking we can do better. And I think the Broncos could add more to this stable right here. But at the same time, maybe I'm crazy. I'm willing to gamble on Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning, and Nick Bonitto all taking a big step next year. And if you're looking to draft for need, I don't know if edge is that huge of a need, right? When you finish 21st in sacks, you can obviously do better, but that was with a very young unit. Like, Bonitto's entering his 30, or Jonathan Cooper's getting going right now. Baron Browning missed some time. Like, if you were to get those three guys healthy all year and improved from last season, I think this team could come up with some bigger needs across the roster than edge rusher. But if you think Latu is going to be some generational pass rusher, well, to hell with what I just said. Go get a guy that you think could be the leader of your pass rushing unit for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years potentially. So I like this current edge rusher unit. They can definitely do better, but I'm also not going to write them off. I think they can improve from last season since they're only going to get better and better early on in their career. Now let's wrap up the rest of this mock draft by looking at the remaining Mel Kiper selections. So Terrion Arnold is a player I've seen mocked to the Broncos a ton. He goes to the Raiders, the very next pick. Brian Thomas is a New Orleans Saint. Keon Coleman goes to the Colts. J.J. McCarthy falls to the Seahawks at number 16. So in this Mel Kiper draft, you've got Kiper passing on a quarterback for the Broncos. Cooper DeJean, the cornerback from Iowa, he goes to Jacksonville. We see some SEC guys follow that. Jared Verse goes to the Rams. I like Jared Verse a lot. If we're picking Latu or Verse, I might lean towards Verse overall. Moving on here, some big guys in the trenches. Seeing some offensive and defensive linemen going here between the Dolphins and the Cowboys. And then to kind of round out the end of this mock draft, we've got Chop Robinson, another edge rusher to keep an eye on if you do like edge. He is not super productive. It was not super productive, but he's a traits guy, right? He's the this is a project we can work on, Chop Robinson. And then to round out this mock draft, it's only fitting that the Kansas City Chiefs go wide receiver no matter what in round 1 with Troy Franklin out of Oregon. And then we've got Amarius Mims, the final selection of round 1, going to the 49ers. Now, I love to look back at previous mock drafts just to see how accurate these guys are. And it's a very difficult job. I'm not shaming them for missing selections. It's nearly impossible to do. But Mel Kiper last year, this time, January 2023, his mock draft had 21 guys end up going first round, period. Like, forget which team they went to. 21 of his 31 selections went round 1 at all. So we're not looking at a very high hit rate compared to his final mock draft where he correctly predicted 26 of the 31 players selected to go in that round. And then by April, he actually had some really nice mid-round picks selected correctly. So again, it's early on in the mock draft process. I think it's important to at least figure out a baseline of who's going where. And once we have that somewhat figured out, then we can kind of start talking about what would make the best selection for Denver at pick number 12. Now, before we get on out of here, let me know who you want the Broncos to draft. Don't be afraid. Just scroll on down, drop a name, and let me know who you want to see Sean and George Paton read across the name card going into the 2024 NFL Draft. That's going to do it for us on our show today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate those of you that watch all the way to the end of the video. And if you're still watching right now, type DEN in the comment section.